For the next hour, Marcus explained exactly what he found. He described his simple programs, the pattern changes he'd observed, and his calculations showing the system's approaching failure. Zix recorded everything, their patterns showing increasing alarm as the evidence mounted. "The prosecution's case has holes," they said finally. "They claim you stole encryption codes, but the data shows you were running system diagnostics. They say you accessed restricted areas, but your access was within maintenance protocols." Zix's patterns shifted to show determination. "We can fight this." "We don't have time," Marcus said, pointing to the walls where the light patterns were becoming visibly unstable. "The system is failing faster than I calculated. We need to convince them to look at the evidence now." Zix studied the walls, their patterns now matching Marcus's concern. "Then we'll have to do something dramatic, something they can't ignore." They turned to Marcus. "How would you feel about demonstrating the flaw during your trial?" Marcus thought about the risks, about what might happen if he was wrong. Then he thought about Sarah, about the millions of lives at stake. "Whatever it takes," he said firmly. "Just help me show them the truth." Zix's patterns shifted to show agreement. As they left the cell, Marcus watched the quantum streams stutter again. Time was running out, but at last, someone was willing to listen. Now he just had to prove he was right before it was too late. Marcus sat in the small conference room with Zix, surrounded by floating holographic displays showing lines of quantum code. His eyes darted between screens, pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. The more they dug into the system logs, the clearer the picture became. "Look at this," Marcus pointed to a sequence of numbers. "Every time I ran my diagnostic program, the system automatically created backup files. I didn't do it. The computer did it on its own." Zix's skin patterns shifted in concentration as they studied the data. "Our systems are designed to preserve vital information if they detect a threat. But why would it respond to your simple maintenance programs?" Marcus pulled up another screen, his fingers tracing the light patterns. "Because my programs weren't just checking the system. They were exposing a fatal flaw. The quantum network recognized the danger and started making emergency copies of itself. The evidence was there in the logs. Each time Marcus's programs had probed the network, looking for errors, the system had triggered its own preservation protocols. What security had flagged as theft was actually the network trying to save itself. The flaw is in the base code," Marcus explained, bringing up more displays. "Your quantum network is like a living thing. It saw what my programs found and tried to warn someone, but nobody was listening." Zix's patterns showed growing alarm. "This is why the prosecution's evidence makes no sense. You didn't steal anything. The system was creating backup copies because it detected a critical failure." A soft chime interrupted them as another error rippled through the quantum field. The holographic displays flickered, steadied, then flickered again. Marcus watched the patterns with growing concern. "It's getting worse," he said quietly. "The network is trying to correct itself, but the errors are spreading too fast, like a disease eating through the system." Zix pulled up records from the past week. "The failure rate has increased by 300% since your arrest. Why can't our scientists see this?" "Because they're not looking for it," Marcus said. "Your quantum technology is so advanced, so perfect, that nobody ever thought it could break down. But sometimes the simplest things can bring down the most complex systems." He brought up a new display, showing the network's energy patterns. "See these spikes? They're like tremors before an earthquake. The whole system is becoming unstable. When it fails, everything connected to it will fail too. Everything." Zix's patterns paled. "But that would mean life support systems, gravity controls, power generation. All of it runs on the quantum network. When it goes down, this entire world could die." The gravity of the situation settled over them like a heavy weight. Marcus thought about Sarah back on Earth, about how he'd come here to save her life. Now he was trying to save an entire civilization. "How long do we have?" Zix asked, their patterns showing determination. Marcus studied the degradation rates. at the current pace, maybe 48 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. After that, total system collapse could happen at any time. The trial is scheduled for tomorrow morning, Six said. We'll have one chance to prove what's happening, to show them the truth before it's too late. The massive crystalline doors of courtroom 7 slid open with a soft hum. Marcus Chen walked in slowly, each step echoing across the polished floor that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. His dark hands trembled slightly as he clutched a small silver device, its surface catching the ethereal glow from the bioluminescent walls. The room stretched high above, its ceiling lost in shadows despite the gentle blue radiance coming from the walls. 7 towering podiums formed a perfect half-circle before him, each occupied by an Arcturian judge whose azure skin seemed to pulse with barely contained energy. Their elongated faces and glowing white eyes focused on Marcus with an intensity that made his throat go dry. The gallery behind him was packed with spectators, hundreds of Arcturians whose whispers died away the moment he entered. The silence felt heavy, pressing down on his shoulders like a physical weight. Marcus could feel their stares boring into his back, a mix of curiosity and contempt. Lead Judge Xilax raised a 6-fingered hand, the movement causing ripples of light to dance across their ceremonial robes. Marcus Chen of Earth, their voice resonated through the chamber. Translated perfectly by the court systems, you stand accused of theft of classified technology, espionage against the Arcturian collective, and endangering the safety of our people. The evidence against you is substantial. Do you have any final words before we pass judgment? Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the cool, slightly sweet air of the alien world fill his lungs. His daughter Sarah's face flashed through his mind. Her smile, her courage through the treatments, her unwavering faith in him. He couldn't fail her now. Not when he was so close to the truth. Your honors, Marcus said, his voice steadier than he felt. I know how this looks. A human janitor, someone you trusted to clean your labs, accused of stealing your most advanced technology. He took a step forward, holding up the small device. But before you sentence me, I need to show you something that will change everything you think you know about this case. The device caught the light, its metallic surface reflecting tiny rainbows across the chamber. The judges exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in what Marcus had learned to recognize as confusion and interest. Judge Arax, the youngest of the 7, leaned forward. You dare to bring an unauthorized device into this sacred chamber. Their patterns flashed with warning colors. This isn't what you think, Marcus said quickly, his heart pounding against his ribs. This isn't stolen technology. It's something much more important. And much more dangerous. Something that affects everyone in this room, everyone on this planet. The spectators began to murmur, their voices creating a soft rushing sound like waves on a distant shore. Marcus could see the court guards tensing, their hands moving closer to their weapons. But he also noticed something else. Tiny flickers in the room's lighting, almost too quick to spot, just like the patterns he'd seen that night in the lab. Lead Judge Xilax raised their hand again, bringing silence to the chamber. Explain yourself, Marcus Chen. But choose your words carefully. Our patience is not infinite. Marcus nodded, his fingers tightening around the device. Your honors, I discovered something in your quantum network that no one was supposed to find. Not because it was classified, but because it was hidden. There's a flaw in your systems, a flaw that's growing worse every second we wait. As if to prove his point, the lights flickered again, longer this time. Several of the spectators looked up, their skin patterns showing signs of unease. I can prove it, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger. I can show you exactly what's happening, and more importantly, how to fix it. But we don't have much time. The 7 judges leaned forward in perfect unison, their glowing eyes fixed on the trembling human who dared to challenge their entire system. The fate of 2 civilizations hung in the balance, though only Marcus truly understood how literal that balance was. The device in his hands grew warm, its internal systems detecting the growing instability in the quantum network around them. Marcus knew he had one chance to prove his innocence and save countless lives. One chance to show these advanced beings that sometimes the most important discoveries come from the most unexpected places. "Please," he said softly, meeting the intense gaze of lead Judge Xilax. "Let me show you the truth." The chamber fell into complete silence, broken only by the faint hum of technology and the increasingly frequent flickers of light. 7 pairs of glowing eyes studied Marcus Chen, weighing his words, measuring his worth. The next few moments would either condemn him as a criminal or reveal him as a savior. The soft hum of the cleaning unit filled the empty halls of the Arcturian Research Center as Marcus guided it across the shimmering floors. The midnight shift was his favorite. Just him, his thoughts, and the gentle glow of alien technology surrounding him. He checked his wrist display, 2:47 a.m. Earth time. His daughter Sarah would be waking up soon for her morning treatment back home. The thought of Sarah made his chest tighten. The advanced medical care she needed wasn't cheap, but this job paid 10 times what he could make on Earth. Every credit he earned here meant another chance for his little girl to beat her illness. Marcus steered the cleaner around a corner, entering the main research wing. The walls here pulsed with streams of light, the visible manifestation of the quantum network that powered Arcturian civilization. He'd spent countless nights studying those patterns while cleaning, teaching himself to understand their complex language through careful observation. The cleaning unit suddenly stuttered, its power fluctuating. Marcus frowned. That had been happening more often lately. He tapped the control panel, trying to restart it, when something caught his eye. The light patterns on the wall weren't flowing smoothly anymore. There was a stutter there too. A brief moment where the streams seemed to tangle before correcting themselves. Marcus stepped closer to the wall, his years of self-taught programming sending warning signals to his brain. The patterns were wrong, not just different, but fundamentally incorrect, like watching a computer program slowly break down. He pulled out his personal tablet, a simple device he used to track his cleaning schedules. Over the past months, he'd written a basic program to help him understand the Arcturian systems better. It wasn't much, just something to translate their base code into terms he could understand. Marcus held the tablet up to the wall, letting it scan the light patterns. The results made his heart skip. According to his simple program, the quantum network was showing signs of cascade failure, tiny errors building up into something catastrophic. "This can't be right," he muttered, moving down the hall to scan another section. The results were the same. Everywhere he looked, the perfect flow of Arcturian technology showed microscopic flaws that were growing larger by the hour. He had to report this. Marcus knew he wasn't supposed to understand these systems. He was just a janitor, after all. But if his readings were correct, millions of lives could be at risk. The nearest research terminal was just around the corner. Marcus hesitated. Using it would mean breaking at least 3 different security protocols. But the weight of what he'd discovered pushed him forward. He placed his hand on the scanner, using the basic access he'd been granted for cleaning duties. The terminal hummed to life, its holographic display filling the air before him. Marcus worked quickly, transferring the data from his tablet and running it through the more sophisticated Arcturian systems. His heart pounded as the results confirmed his fears. The quantum network was degrading. Within days, it could collapse entirely. He was so focused on the data that he didn't notice the security cameras shifting to focus on him, didn't see the alert being sent to the night watch, didn't hear the soft footsteps approaching until it was too late. Step away from the terminal. Human. Marcus turned slowly, raising his hands. 3 Arcturian security officers stood behind him, their skin patterns flashing warning colors. Their weapons weren't drawn, but their postures made it clear they were ready for trouble. "I can explain," Marcus said quickly. "There's something wrong with the network. I found patterns. A maintenance worker accessing restricted systems in the middle of the night." The lead officer's voice was cold. "I think you'll have plenty of time to explain yourself to the authorities." Please, just look at the data. I'm trying to help. But they weren't listening anymore. As the officers led him away, Marcus caught one last glimpse of the terminal display. The error patterns were spreading, growing stronger. Time was running out, and now the only person who knew about the danger was being arrested as a spy. Marcus thought of Sarah as the security doors closed behind him. He had to find a way to make them understand, not just for his daughter's sake now, but for everyone on this world. He only hoped they would listen before it was too late. The holding cell's force field cast a pale blue glow across Marcus's face as he sat on the simple sleeping platform. Through the transparent barrier, he could see the streams of data flowing through the walls growing more unstable by the hour. Nobody else seemed to notice the warning signs he'd discovered. A soft chime announced a visitor. The force field rippled and parted as a young Arcturian entered. Their skin patterns showed swirling colors of youth and inexperience, but their eyes held a sharp intelligence. "I am Zix," they said, their translator converting the musical Arcturian language to English. "I have been assigned as your legal representative." They studied Marcus with obvious curiosity. "You are accused of stealing quantum encryption protocols worth billions of credits. The evidence seems substantial." Marcus leaned forward. "I didn't steal anything. I was trying to warn them about a serious problem in the quantum network. There's a flaw that's growing worse." "Please," Zix held up a hand, their skin patterns shifting to show skepticism. "You are a maintenance worker. How could you possibly understand our quantum systems?" "Because I taught myself," Marcus said quietly. "Every night while cleaning, I studied the patterns. I wrote basic programs to help me understand them. I know it sounds impossible, but—" "Show me," Zix interrupted, pulling out a datapad. "Show me what you found." Marcus blinked, surprised by the direct request. For 3 days, everyone had dismissed his explanations without even listening. He stood up and walked to the force field, pointing to the light streams on the wall. "Look there. See how the pattern stutters every few seconds. It should flow smoothly, but there's a disruption in the quantum field. My programs detected it growing exponentially." Zix's patterns shifted to show interest as they recorded the wall's behavior. "And you discovered this while cleaning?" "Yes. The cleaning unit started malfunctioning first. Then I noticed the patterns changing. I was trying to report it when security found me." The young lawyer studied their datapad, skin now showing confusion. "The prosecution claims you accessed restricted areas to steal encryption codes. But according to these logs, you were running diagnostic programs, not accessing secure data." "Exactly." Marcus felt a surge of hope. "Check the system logs from the 3 days before my arrest. The errors were showing up then too." Zix's fingers moved across their pad, bringing up more records. Their patterns suddenly flashed with surprise. "This is unusual." The logs show multiple system corrections during that period, small errors being automatically fixed, but the frequency of corrections is increasing. "Just like I said," Marcus pressed, "the quantum network is failing. In a few days, it could collapse completely. Millions could die if the life support systems go down." The young lawyer's patterns now showed deep concern. "But why would they arrest you for trying to report this?" Marcus sighed. "Think about it. What looks better, arresting a human spy for stealing technology, or admitting their perfect system has a fatal flaw? A flaw that a simple janitor discovered before their best scientists." Zix was quiet for a long moment, their patterns swirling with complex emotions. Finally, they looked up at Marcus. "My first case as a defender, and I get a human maintenance worker who claims to understand quantum mechanics better than our experts." Their patterns shifted to show something like amusement. "Tell me everything. Don't leave out any details." For the next hour, Marcus explained exactly what he found. He described his simple programs, the pattern changes he'd observed, and his calculations showing the system's approaching failure. Zix recorded everything, their patterns showing increasing alarm as the evidence mounted. "The prosecution's case has holes," they said finally. They claim you stole encryption codes, but the data shows you were running system diagnostics. They say you accessed restricted areas, but your access was within maintenance protocols. Zix's patterns shifted to show determination. We can fight this. We don't have time, Marcus said, pointing to the walls where the light patterns were becoming visibly unstable. The system is failing faster than I calculated. We need to convince them to look at the evidence now. Zix studied the walls, their patterns now matching Marcus's concern. Then we'll have to do something dramatic, something they can't ignore. They turned to Marcus. How would you feel about demonstrating the flaw during your trial? Marcus thought about the risks, about what might happen if he was wrong. Then he thought about Sarah, about the millions of lives at stake. Whatever it takes, he said firmly. Just help me show them the truth. Zix's patterns shifted to show agreement. As they left the cell, Marcus watched the quantum streams stutter again. Time was running out, but at last, someone was willing to listen. Now he just had to prove he was right before it was too late. Marcus sat in the small conference room with Zix, surrounded by floating holographic displays showing lines of quantum code. His eyes darted between screens, pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. The more they dug into the system logs, the clearer the picture became. Look at this, Marcus pointed to a sequence of numbers. Every time I ran my diagnostic program, the system automatically created backup files. I didn't do it. The computer did it on its own. Zix's skin patterns shifted in concentration as they studied the data. Our systems are designed to preserve vital information if they detect a threat. But why would it respond to your simple maintenance programs? Marcus pulled up another screen, his fingers tracing the light patterns. Because my programs weren't just checking the system, they were exposing a fatal flaw. The quantum network recognized the danger and started making emergency copies of itself. The evidence was there in the logs. Each time Marcus's programs had probed the network, looking for errors, the system had triggered its own preservation protocols. What security had flagged as theft was actually the network trying to save itself. The flaw is in the base code, Marcus explained, bringing up more displays. Your quantum network is like a living thing. It saw what my programs found and tried to warn someone, but nobody was listening. Zix's patterns showed growing alarm. This is why the prosecution's evidence makes no sense. You didn't steal anything. The system was creating backup copies because it detected a critical failure. A soft chime interrupted them as another error rippled through the quantum field. The holographic displays flickered, steadied, then flickered again. Marcus watched the patterns with growing concern. It's getting worse, he said quietly. The network is trying to correct itself, but the errors are spreading too fast, like a disease eating through the system. Zix pulled up records from the past week. The failure rate has increased by 300% since your arrest. Why can't our scientists see this? Because they're not looking for it, Marcus said. Your quantum technology is so advanced, so perfect, that nobody ever thought it could break down. But sometimes the simplest things can bring down the most complex systems. He brought up a new display, showing the network's energy patterns. See these spikes? They're like tremors before an earthquake. The whole system is becoming unstable. When it fails, everything connected to it will fail too. Everything. Zix's patterns paled. But that would mean life support systems, gravity controls, power generation. All of it runs on the quantum network. When it goes down, this entire world could die. The gravity of the situation settled over them like a heavy weight. Marcus thought about Sarah back on Earth, about how he'd come here to save her life. Now he was trying to save an entire civilization. How long do we have? Zix asked, their patterns showing determination. Marcus studied the degradation rates. At the current pace, maybe 48 hours before the damage becomes irreversible. After that, total system collapse could happen at any time. The trial is scheduled for tomorrow morning, Zix said. We'll have one chance to prove what's happening, to show them the truth before it's too late. Marcus nodded, his mind already working on a plan. We need to demonstrate the flaw in a way they can't ignore. Something dramatic enough to make them listen, but controlled enough not to trigger a panic. He pulled up his original diagnostic programs, the simple tools that had started all this. If we can modify these to work with your court systems, we can show them exactly what's happening. Make them see the danger before it's too late. Zix's patterns shifted to show agreement. I'll make sure your programs are allowed in the courtroom. But Marcus, their patterns darkened with concern. If we're wrong about this. We're not wrong, Marcus said firmly, watching another error pulse through the walls. I've spent months learning your systems, seeing how they work. This is real, and it's happening now. He turned back to the displays, fingers moving quickly across the holographic interfaces. Time was running out, but now they had a plan. Tomorrow, he would either save this world or be remembered as the human who tried to destroy it. Outside their conference room, the quantum streams continued their dance across the walls, their perfect patterns breaking down one tiny error at a time. The clock was ticking, and only Marcus Chen, the janitor who taught himself quantum mechanics, could see the disaster coming. The chief prosecutor's voice echoed through the courtroom, their skin patterns glowing with confidence. As you can see, honored judges, this human's claims are nothing but desperate lies. Our quantum network is perfect, unbreakable. A ripple of darkness swept through the chamber. The bioluminescent walls dimmed, brightened, then dimmed again. The prosecutor's voice faltered as confused murmurs spread through the watching crowd. Marcus stood up from his seat, heart pounding. Your honors, please. This is what I've been trying to warn you about. The network is failing. The 7 judges stirred uneasily as another wave of darkness pulsed through the room. Lead Judge Oxylax raised a hand for silence. Explain quickly, human. Our technicians report no system errors. Marcus moved to the center of the court, pulling out his simple tablet. Your quantum network operates on base 12 mathematics, right? But Earth computers use base 10. When I wrote my diagnostic programs, I had to convert between the two. That's when I noticed something your systems couldn't see. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Marcus connected his tablet to the courtroom's main display. Numbers and patterns filled the air around them. Look here, he pointed to a sequence of calculations. In base 12, these patterns look perfect, but convert them to base 10, and you can see the errors, like looking at the same problem from a different angle. The chief prosecutor's patterns flashed with dismissal. This is absurd. A simple maintenance worker cannot possibly understand. Suddenly, all power in the courtroom died. For 3 terrifying seconds, they were plunged into total darkness. When the emergency systems kicked in, casting everything in a dim red glow, the crowd's nervous whispers turned to frightened calls. Please, Marcus begged, thinking of Sarah waiting for him on Earth. Let me show you before it's too late. Your system is so advanced, so complex, that it can't see its own flaws. Sometimes you need simple tools to fix complex problems. Judge Irax leaned forward. Proceed, but quickly. Our patience grows thin. Marcus's fingers flew across his tablet, projecting a simplified version of the quantum network onto the courtroom walls. Watch this pattern. In base 12, it looks like a perfect flow. But in base 10, he tapped a command, and the pattern transformed. Now they could all see the disruptions, the tiny errors building up into larger ones. As if on cue, another power fluctuation rippled through the building. The network isn't just a computer system, Marcus explained, his voice growing stronger. It's like a living thing. When my programs detected these flaws, the system tried to protect itself by making backups. That's what you thought I was stealing. The network was actually crying for help. The judge's patterns showed growing concern as more displays appeared, each showing the spread of errors through their world systems. Lead Judge Oxylax's patterns shifted to show alarm. If what you say is true, how long before total system failure? Another surge of darkness swept the room. When the lights returned, Marcus pointed to his calculations. Hours, maybe less. But we can still fix it if we act now. I've written a program that can help stabilize the network, but I need access to your main systems. The prosecutor stepped forward. Your honors, surely you cannot trust this human with our most vital. They were cut off as all power failed again. This time, the darkness lasted 10 seconds. When light returned, panic was spreading through the crowd. Your honors, Marcus said quietly, I came to your world to earn money for my daughter's medical treatment. I have nothing to gain by destroying your civilization. Please, let me help. The 7 judges conferred, their patterns swirling with urgent communication. Around them, the quantum streams in the walls were visibly breaking down, patterns stuttering and freezing. Finally, lead judge Axilak spoke. Marcus Chen, if you are wrong, you will spend the rest of your life in our deepest prison. If you are lying, your punishment will be even worse. Marcus met their glowing eyes steadily. I understand, but right now, we're running out of time. Another surge of darkness swept the room. When it passed, lead judge Axilak's patterns showed fierce determination. Very well. Given access to the main systems. All of them. As the crowd watched in tense silence, Marcus Chen, the human janitor who had taught himself alien quantum mechanics, began his race against time to save a civilization. Somewhere on Earth, his daughter waited, not knowing that her father's fight for her life had become a fight for millions more. The central control room of the Arcturian quantum network hummed with nervous energy. Marcus sat at the main terminal, surrounded by the planet's top scientists. Their skin patterns flickered with anxiety as they watched his fingers dance across the holographic controls. The base code is degrading faster than we calculated, Marcus said, pulling up streams of data. We need to stabilize the core systems before we can start repairs. Dr. Vin, the head of quantum research, leaned over his shoulder. Their patterns showed a mix of wonder and fear. To think we missed this. All our advanced systems, and a human maintenance worker saw what we couldn't. Another power surge rocked the building. Emergency lights flashed as backup systems struggled to cope. Marcus thought of Sarah, imagining her brave smile during treatments. He needed that kind of courage now. The network is like a living thing, Marcus explained as he worked. It's been trying to heal itself, but the errors are spreading too fast. We need to help it fight back. His simple tablet sat next to the alien controls, running the basic programs he'd written during those long nights of cleaning. Now those same programs were their best hope for saving the planet. There. He pointed to a sequence of numbers. See how the patterns change when we convert from base 12 to base 10. The flaw isn't in your quantum mechanics. It's in how the system processes basic mathematics. The alien scientists crowded closer, their patterns showing sudden understanding. One of them, a younger researcher named Trix, quickly moved to another terminal. If we use your Earth calculations as a reference point, Trix said, their patterns brightening with excitement, we can create a bridge between the two systems. Marcus nodded, fingers flying faster. Exactly. Your network is too perfect, too advanced to see its own flaws. But sometimes you need simple tools to fix complex problems. A violent tremor shook the room. Warning signals flashed across every screen as the quantum network entered critical failure. Main power grid failing. Someone shouted, life support systems losing stability. Marcus took a deep breath, Sarah's face clear in his mind. Everyone, listen carefully. We need to implement the fix simultaneously across all systems. If we get this wrong, he didn't need to finish. Everyone in the room knew their world's survival hung in the balance. The alien scientists moved to their stations, patterns now showing fierce determination. On my mark, Marcus called out, enter the conversion protocols. Dr. Vin, start the quantum field stabilization. Trix, monitor the power grid. Everyone else, watch your sectors and report any anomalies. His simple tablet blinked with warnings as the network deteriorated. They had minutes, maybe less, before total system collapse. Marcus thought of Sarah again, of all the times she'd faced impossible odds with a smile. "Ready," he said, hands hovering over the controls. 3, 2, 1. Now. Fingers moved across terminals all around the room. Marcus's programs merged with the alien systems, creating a bridge between Earth's simple mathematics and Arcturian quantum complexity. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the lights went out completely. In the darkness, Marcus held his breath. 1 second passed. 2, 3. He could hear the alien scientist's patterns pulsing with fear. Suddenly, a soft blue glow filled the room. The quantum streams in the walls began to flow again, smoother than before. Screens came back to life, showing system after system returning to normal. Power grid stabilizing. Life support returning to nominal. Quantum field integrity at 95% and rising. Marcus slumped in his chair, exhausted but relieved. Dr. Vin's patterns showed pure joy as they studied the readings. "The network is healing itself," they announced. "Using your Earth mathematics as a foundation, it's building new protection protocols. It's learning." The room erupted in cheers. Alien scientists whose patterns had shown suspicion now displayed colors of respect and gratitude. Marcus smiled, thinking of how he could finally tell Sarah that everything would be okay. "Marcus Chen," Dr. Vin said formally, their patterns showing deep respect. "You have saved our world. How can we ever repay you?" Marcus thought of the medical bills waiting back on Earth, of Sarah's next round of treatments. But before he could speak, Trix called out from their terminal. "Look at this. The network isn't just stable. It's better than before. The merger of our quantum systems with Earth mathematics has created something entirely new." As the scientists crowded around to see this discovery, Marcus sat quietly at his terminal. Sometimes, he thought, the best solutions come from the most unexpected places, just like a janitor saving a civilization. Outside, the quantum streams flowed smoothly through the walls, stronger and more beautiful than ever before. A perfect blend of two worlds' knowledge, brought together by a father's love and determination to build a better future for his daughter. The packed courtroom fell silent as Marcus Chen stood before the 7 judges once again. The quantum streams on the walls flowed with a new beauty, their patterns stronger and clearer than ever before. Lead Judge Xilax's patterns glowed with dignity as they rose to speak. "Marcus Chen of Earth, 3 days ago you stood in this chamber accused of crimes against our people. Today you stand here as the savior of our civilization." Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes as he thought of the journey that had brought him here. From cleaning floors in the night to saving an entire world, all because he wanted to help his daughter. "Your discovery," Judge Xilax continued, "has not only saved our systems but improved them. The merger of Earth mathematics with our quantum technology opens new possibilities we never imagined." Dr. Vin stepped forward, their patterns showing excitement. "The enhanced network is processing information faster than ever before. Medical research that once took years can now be completed in months." Marcus's heart skipped a beat at those words. He thought of Sarah, of all the treatments that hadn't worked, of all the doctors who had given up hope. "Which brings us to the matter of your reward," Lead Judge Xilax said. "We understand you came to our world to earn money for your daughter's medical care." "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus said quietly. "Sarah has a rare condition. Earth doctors haven't found a cure." The judge's patterns shifted to show warmth. "Our medical technology, combined with the enhanced quantum network, may be able to help. We would like to offer your daughter full treatment in our best facilities." Marcus struggled to speak past the lump in his throat. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Six spoke up from beside him, their patterns showing joy. "Say yes, and let us help the man who helped us." The courtroom erupted in cheers, aliens whose patterns had once shown suspicion, now displaying colors of celebration and respect. Dr. Vin approached Marcus with a small device in their hands. This is a direct link to our medical research center, they explained. We've already begun analyzing your daughter's condition using the enhanced network. The preliminary results are promising, but it was too late. A distant alarm echoed through the jungle. "Run," Daniel shouted. They took off, sprinting through the undergrowth as the sound of engines roared in the distance. The Concorde reinforcements were coming. The ship was just ahead. Daniel could see it. A black dagger-shaped craft, its ramp still down. "Move," he yelled. Zara and Lyrian rushed ahead, reaching the ramp first. Daniel covered them, firing behind him as the first Concorde soldiers burst into the clearing. Bullets whizzed past his head. One grazed his arm, but he didn't stop. He reached the ramp, slammed his fist onto the holo keycard panel, and the ship's engines roared to life. "Get inside," he shouted. They barely made it as the first missiles exploded against the hull. Breaking free, Daniel jumped into the pilot's seat and grabbed the controls. "I hope you two know how to fly." Lyrian slid into the co-pilot's chair, her fingers dancing over the controls. "Leave it to me." Zira sat behind them, activating the ship's shields. "Just take off." Daniel punched the thrusters, and the ship lurched into the sky. The Concorde ships were already on their tail. 3 sleek fighters raced after them, their weapons glowing red. "They're locking missiles," Zira shouted. Daniel gritted his teeth. "Not today." He jerked the controls, sending the ship into a barrel roll just as the first missiles narrowly missed them. The blast shook the cabin, but they were still in the fight. Lyrian's hands moved fast, hacking into the enemy's targeting systems. "I can jam them, but not for long." Daniel's heart pounded. "That's all I need." He flipped a switch, activating the ship's stealth drive. For a split second, the ship vanished from enemy radar. The Concorde pilots hesitated, and that was their mistake. Daniel swung the ship around and fired. 2 of the enemy fighters exploded instantly, their debris burning in the atmosphere. The third tried to escape, but Zira extended her hand, her eyes burning with energy. The ship froze midair, as if an invisible force had grabbed it. Daniel glanced at her. "You can do that." Zira smirked. "Apparently." With a flick of her wrist, the last enemy imploded, vanishing in a burst of fire. Silence filled the cockpit. Daniel let out a breath. "We're clear." Lyrian looked over at him. "Where do we go now?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Somewhere they won't expect." And with that, they jumped to hyperspace, leaving the war behind. For now. The awakening. Hours passed. The ship drifted through the dark void of space, its engines running silent. Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhausted but alive. Zira and Lyrian sat across from him. They didn't look tired. They never did. But something was different. Zira stared at her hands, frowning. "That power. I did not know I could do that." Lyrian nodded. "It is awakening." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Awakening." Lyrian looked at him, her expression unreadable. "The longer we survive, the stronger we become. Our abilities, they were dormant, but now they are returning." Daniel exhaled. "So you're telling me you two haven't even reached full strength yet?" Zira smirked. "Not even close." Daniel shook his head. "Great. That's not terrifying at all." But deep down, he knew the truth. This was only the beginning. Whatever power the twins had, it was waking up. And when it did, the entire galaxy would feel it. The calm before the storm. As they drifted through space, Daniel stood near the viewport, staring at the distant stars. Lyrian walked up beside him. "You do not have to stay with us, Daniel." He smirked. "You kidding? You two are the best entertainment I've had in years." Lyrian studied him. "You know this will not end well, don't you?" Daniel sighed. "Probably." She was right. They were hunted by the Concorde, pursued by enemies they didn't even understand. And sooner or later, they would have to stop running. They would have to fight. Zara leaned against the wall, arms crossed. We should rest. The next battle will come soon enough. Daniel nodded. Yeah, we'll deal with it when it happens. For now, they had a moment of peace. But deep in his gut, he knew. The real war hadn't even started yet. Daniel Carter had never believed in fate. He had lived through too many battles, lost too many friends, and seen too many betrayals to think the universe had some grand plan. But now, standing on the edge of a war he never wanted, staring at an enemy fleet that stretched across the stars, he wondered if everything had led him here. To this moment, to this fight. He tightened his grip on his rifle and turned to the twin alien sisters, Zara and Lyrian. This is it. They nodded. Their glowing eyes were unreadable, but Daniel could feel it. The tension in the air, the storm brewing beneath their calm expressions. They weren't running anymore. This was where they would make their stand. The enemy arrives. The ship's alarms blared. A massive fleet had arrived. On the main screen, Daniel could see them. Hundreds of warships, sleek black with blood-red insignias. The Concorde had finally caught up. But it wasn't just them. Behind the Concorde fleet, another force lurked. A second army. Zara's face darkened. The Zyre Dominion. Daniel's stomach dropped. The Concorde and the Zyre working together. That was impossible. They had been enemies for centuries. But now, they had united against one common threat. Zara and Lyrian. Damn it, Daniel muttered. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution. The plan. Daniel paced across the bridge, thinking fast. Their ship was fast and stealthy, but it wouldn't survive a direct fight against a fleet. Lyrian studied the incoming forces. They won't attack immediately. They will try to demand our surrender first. Zara smirked. Then we should answer them. Daniel raised an eyebrow. You have a plan. She nodded. We do not need to win. We only need to make sure they lose. Daniel grinned. I like the sound of that. The message. A transmission request flashed on the screen. Daniel hit accept, and a familiar face appeared. A hard-jawed man with sharp gray eyes. General Rhodes, the same man who had betrayed him. Carter, Rhodes said, voice cold. I warned you not to get involved. Daniel smirked. Yeah, well, I have a habit of making bad decisions. Rhodes sighed. This is your last chance. Surrender the twins, and you walk away. Zara stepped forward. You are afraid of us. Rhodes didn't flinch. You don't understand what you are. If you live, you will burn the galaxy to ash. Lyrian's voice was soft. Or we will save it. A flicker of something, doubt, crossed Rhodes' face. Then his expression hardened. You made your choice. The transmission cut. Outside, the enemy fleet began to move. The first strike. Daniel grabbed the controls. Time to move. Lyrian activated the stealth drive, making them vanish from sensors. Zara raised a hand, her energy pulsing. Let's see how strong I've become. She reached out toward the fleet, her fingers twisting in the air. Suddenly, one of the Concorde battleships shuddered. Daniel watched, stunned, as its engines flared uncontrollably. Then it exploded, a massive fireball consuming everything around it. Zara exhaled, her hands shaking. I can do more. Daniel grinned. Then let's make them regret chasing us. The battle. The enemy fleet opened fire, but Daniel was already moving. He dove between warships, using their own formation against them. Missiles meant for him struck their own allies, causing chaos. Lyrian hacked into their systems, disabling their shields one by one. Zara ripped ships apart with her mind, tearing through steel as if it were paper. For the first time, the hunters became the hunted. The betrayal. Then the unexpected happened. The Zyre ships turned on the Concorde. Missiles slammed into the Concorde battleships. Fighters that once chased Daniel were now firing on their own allies. Daniel's eyes widened. What the hell is going on? Lyrian's expression darkened. They were never truly allies. They only worked together until they could betray each other. Zira smiled. Good, let them destroy each other. Daniel laughed. Dan, you two really are dangerous. The last stand. The battle raged on, but Daniel knew it wouldn't last forever. They had weakened the Concord. The Zir had betrayed them. But now, both sides wanted them dead. The stealth drive was overheating. Their weapons were almost out of power. They had minutes left. Daniel set his jaw. We need one final move.